Yay Networks.
Yo, what's up, y'all? It's your boy Cornelius. Yo, we have a dope episode planned for you today. Yo, before we even jump into that, I got to tell you about this. This year's marriage retreat is going to be lit. Yo, my wife and I, we've hosted marriage retreats for over a decade. And we're headed back to Mexico, all-inclusive resort. Wonderful amenities. Yo, our sessions are dope. We have a great time. We're all about creating and having really, really dope experiences. We got a photographer set that's going to give every couple that picture perfect, memory on the beach. Is going to be amazing. Vow renewal service at the end. This year's marriage retreat is August the 31st through September 4th. That's during Labor Day weekend. So, you already going to have some time off anyway. Just come down and kick it with us in Mexico. No matter if you're a newlywed or you've been in this game for over 10, 20 years. We going to have something for everybody. Every year, the couples always get blessed. So we did this last year. We've been doing this for decades. The only thing we've been missing you. So invest in your marriage this year. You can go to my website, corneliuslindsay.com. You can get in where you fit in. Just click the link. Make sure you register and make sure you pay your deposit, by Monday, because if you don't, the rate could increase. So we're going to jump into this episode right now. Y'all better buckle up because it's about to go down. About to be amazing. But go to my website, corneliuslindsay.com. Register for this retreat immediately before the spaces fill up. All right, y'all, let's get to it. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Cornelius. Welcome to another episode of This Is Life with Heather and Cornelius. Unfortunately, my wife, she's not with me today. But nonetheless, I have an amazing guest. I'm very excited to introduce to y'all. Very excited to really get to know myself. Hey, Chris Davis. Man, Chris, do you mind just introducing yourself to the people?
Sure. Yeah, no problem, man. I'm Chris Davis, life coach, founder of Lionheart, co-founder with my wife. Lover of people, man. I just love to see people thrive. And so that's what drives me. And everything that I do, the many different places that I find myself, I'm usually trying to find a way to help somebody win, man. So that's probably the best way to introduce myself, brother.
Wow. Well, I really appreciate you being here with me. Specifically, wanted to have you on because today we're having a conversation about father issues. Specifically, just a couple of different things that kind of come from that. I shared with our audience a couple weeks ago, or I guess a month or so ago, about me finding out that the man who raised me was not my father, and that my father was this other man who, really knew who I was since I was a child. But it took 36 years for it to finally come out that he was actually my dad. And now after meeting my dad, the complications of that new relationship, trying to create a new family, all that kind of stuff, the rejection that I felt. So I've shared that with them, but I wanted to have a deeper conversation with you about father issues and what that looks like. I know you have a very interesting story that you were telling me about earlier. Could you share that with the people and also expound on it?
Yeah. So I'll kind of set it up like this. I think what I realized. So a good friend of a mutual friend of ours, and I have kind of a similar background in terms of being former football players. And there's something that I discovered some years ago that really kind of helped me frame fatherhood. Now I'll have to throw this in here to give some further context. I'm a father of three sons. My oldest son is 26 now, right? And so background in football, played a sport that I love. Found out probably, I would say early 30s that all of the passion that I put into playing football was really to get, and I'm proud of you, son, from my father, biological dad. Father was military, spent a lot of time in Europe. And so it's really interesting when you discover that a lot of what has been driving you was based on some of the things that you needed from dad.
Right.
Dad has the ability to provide identity to his children. Right. A lot of times, and what I discovered as a man is that I was looking for him to provide that clarity for me. I was always seeking an answer to who am I? Right. Fathers provide that. Right. So if it's your daughter or if it's your son, we're looking for some validation and speaking in and breathing in and providing identity to that thing. And so that was a revelation for me, like wow, right? And so obviously as a father, it fueled the angle with which I engage my sons. And so I really spoke into their lives from this perspective of trying to call them who they are and let them grow into it, right? And I think to that point, there was I was married at one point earlier in my life, man, and the mother of my younger sons, and she didn't know her father when we met, and so I said, okay, we got to do something about this because we can't just let that be. There needs to be at least some connectivity. And so didn't know her father for 30 years, and I made it my mission to try to find him, right? And what happened was, as God would have it, all the logistics aligned, and I was able to find him, was able to locate him, made an introduction, and I thought that it was going to provide, kind of this fairy tale experience, somebody a long lost, somebody you're looking to meet, and then you find them, and it didn't go quite like I thought it would, right?
Right.
What I wasn't aware of is the trauma that comes along with that kind of experience. Because now you're left questioning, like, okay, wait a minute, right? And then you get to reset, you got to restart. And it's challenging. I mean, I wasn't even prepared for the trauma that comes with, wait a minute. So what the heck was my life all about? Like now I'm trying to figure out, who am I now? This core foundational figure in my life that has been pouring in. I thought it was based on this foundation, and now my foundation is crumbled. Most of us who own homes, we know that a crack in your foundation is not good, right?
Right.
And so as a
Right.
man, when you take a shot there, it's tough. It's tough, and so it leaves you reeling to try to identify and find that identity.
Right.
And it was kind of similar in the sense that what you're saying, that she knew she had who the person she thought her father was not, and she thought that he rejected her. Spent the whole life trying to calibrate based on that, and then found out who her real father was, and he was a great guy. Really wanted to know her, had an inkling that she might have been his daughter, but the way that their lives kind of unfolded, he didn't have access to her. But when he found her and was introduced to her, he was all in. That's not everybody's story, but again,
Right.
one would think that when you see something like that a person would be like, oh, fully embracing, but that wasn't the case at all. And it shocked me. I was surprised, but then later, as I kind of ponder on it, because it really impacted our marriage, and we eventually divorced not long after. And I got blamed for it, because it's kind of like
Was the blame because you helped her find her father, or was the blame the aftermath and the trauma due to her finding who her father was?
absolutely. I think it was the aftermath. It was because I was so
Gotcha.
insistent. And I remember she made a statement. She said, I'm afraid that I'm going to hate my mother, and I don't want to do that. So what happened was this trauma, this war, this wrestling match of not hating mom. So I'm upset about the fact that I'm just now meeting this individual. Don't want to put it on mom, got to put it somewhere. Let's put it on the person who caused it, who started it, right? And so he's kind of displaced. And it's unfortunate, because obviously that was not done with ill intent. It was done to try to repair. But again, me sitting back, being a little bit more mature now, kind of learning from it in hindsight, I have to give space for, wow, that's a system shocker, and my whole life has been built on this reality, and to find out, kind of like the Matrix, like this is not real. There's something else that is more real. Now I got to restart. Like, how do I do that? That's a jarring experience.
Yeah. It's interesting. You mentioned a couple of things at the very beginning. You talked about, being a father to your boys and how fathers provide identity. And, even for me, I felt like I had an idea of who I was, But just like you mentioned that, you played football and you just wanted to hear, I'm proud of you, son, or you did good, son. That's what I wanted to hear. That's all I've ever wanted to hear. And unfortunately, I didn't have that growing up. And I wrote extensively about that. Like I wrote a book called So You Want to Be a Man. And I have a chapter in there called, Present but Silent. And it's about, my stepdad now he was present, but he was silent. And I wanted that. So then it was like, I got into this other thing that you mentioned. I got into the fairy tale after, finding out, okay, this is who my dad is. And now, maybe I can figure out who I am. And even in the conversations that I had with him, I'm like, oh, so that's why I'm this way, because I'm starting to see roots now.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see things in him that I'm like, oh, now I begin to see that in me. Yeah. And now I see where it comes from. Yeah. But then it goes even further than that. That fairy tale has brought me to this point that I'm seeking to really climb out of and really seeking to get healed from, because as much as I did not want for the fairy tale to be the case, I'm quite sure your ex-wife was in the same place. As much as I didn't want the fairy tale to be the case, it became that, and I thought this was going to be my opportunity to finally, know who he is. He can finally know who I am, and that he's going to be proud of me and he's going to be excited for me. And then the disappointment that follows up behind that, the trauma that you mentioned that follows up behind that, and then now the rejection that I feel that I have to fight, because like you mentioned, we want to put the blame somewhere. And unfortunately for somebody like me, I just say for my case, I have the propensity to take the blame and put it back on me. Right. So I'm constantly asking the question, well, why am I not good enough?
Right.
Why is there something wrong with me? And then it goes, even further beyond just my stepdad. It goes further beyond just my birth dad. It goes into also spiritual fathers. Yes. Trying to wonder, well, because I feel like I've been fathered by every big name pastor out there, and it's like okay, at some point I'm really standing back and I'm trying to answer the question. Okay, what's wrong with me? Why is it that I feel like every older man that comes in my life just goes ghost, or they don't communicate. They say they want to communicate, then they don't. Or why I'm having to deal with that sense of rejection. So it's very interesting that your ex-wife, went through that, and then the trauma that kind of came before that. But I wanted to ask you this, because you mentioned with your sons, you are speaking identity into them. You're speaking life into them. What does that look like, and how important how important is that to them? And the third question goes along with that is, do you see a change in them that maybe you didn't see in yourself when you were their age?
Absolutely. So to answer your question, it's a great question. As a believer, as a Christian, I learned early that names matter. They mean something, right? Mm-hmm. So, one of the habits of Jesus was giving people a different name. So This is your name. Okay, so I'm going to change it. Because your name is going to mean something. It's going to connect to your destiny, right? And so the naming of even the names, I was very intentional about naming them, right? But then when I spoke to them, because I realized the power of words and that I had the power to identify it, and I'll trace it back to, early in the book of Genesis, man, it talks about the fact that, before, God promised Adam a suitable helper. And then he said, then it says that God brought everything to Adam, these living things, and said for him to name it, see what he would name them. Right. And then whatever its name would be, whatever he called it, that's what its name would be. And I was like, wow, blew me away. Because, okay, of course, this is God. Of course, he has the intellectual capacity to name something. Right. But why did he bring it to him? Because he had the capacity to provide an identity for everything that he named. And I was like, wow. So all of us men are born with this. Right. So if I, not to take the too far of a tangent. So if I want to dismantle, and really hinder, youth at a young age, create this deficit early, then what I'll do is I'll silence men. I'll have men not speaking, right? I'm not speaking identity. I'm not breathing that kind of life into you. So you don't have to wonder who you are. As a young lady, you're beautiful, you're amazing, you're intelligent, you know what I mean? And so she
Right.
doesn't have to worry about that. Something else I learned is that, of course, as a married man, the first time your wife hears that she looks good that day should not be when she gets to work. It should be before it should be from us, right? Because we have the power to provide identity. There's security when they hear, oh, my daddy told me I was brilliant. My
Yeah.
daddy told me I was strong. My daddy told me I was pretty. My daddy, you know what I mean? And so when you hear that, that I already have it set in my mind that that's what it is. So it doesn't really matter what you say because my daddy already told me. And so what I would do for my boys is I would address them with terms that spoke respect, that kind of presented a respectful kind of image. So I would call them, so my last name is Davis. I would call them Mr. Davis. Mr. D, Mr. Davis, I need you to come on over here. Let's have a conversation. Hey, Mr. Davis, now take a look at that room, because what I wanted them to do is I wanted them to get used to being called Mr. Davis, right?
I love that.
Seems interesting, but I need you to get used to being respected and having a term or being identified with that. I would also, what I would do is their names mean, young king, champion, follower of the anointed one. So I'd always tell them, I remind them, what your name means, right? So you can grow into that. And I think in a lot of ways, what they do is they walk more confidently. I remember trying to figure out who I was, and I wanted to make sure that they didn't have that same thing. I said, you know what? My oldest son, when I was playing ball in college, man, my oldest son was born while I was in college. One of the things I did is I said, you know what? This is my boy. My father was gone the majority of my life. What he's not going to wonder and worry about is where's dad, right?
Right.
So I'm playing ball. I'm going to school. My son is born. I bring him to school with me. So I was literally a single dad, football player in the Big Ten, getting my education. I was working, that kind of thing. It was full time, right? But I had to have him there because I said, you know what? There were a lot of things that I needed from my father, and I want to make sure that he gets it. I want to pour in. I want to dive in with him. I want to invest from the beginning. And so, the one thing that I wanted to make sure that I promised myself is the one thing that's his reality. He never had to wonder where dad was. Now, I think for him and even for my little guys, those terms, the way that I approached them, put them in a position where they didn't have to question who they were. Like I told them, I got mine by a la carte.
Right.
You know what I mean? I had a stepfather for about 30 years, about 28 years, and he passed away a few years back. And he was like you were saying, silent, right? I'm playing ball. I'm doing well in high school. He rarely came to my games, right? My biological father was in Germany, so he never came to my game. So I'm always looking in the stands. I'm always looking to other folks to try to help provide identity, help me figure this manhood thing out. Then, of course, I find myself in a situation where I got a son, and I don't know the first thing about manhood. What am I supposed to do?
But before you keep going, because I was getting ready to ask you about your fatherhood story. Before you keep going, I need to take a quick break to be able to present something. But and then we'll come right back. So I want you to keep your thoughts on that. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Hey, you know what? We all have those times in our life when we want to feel our best. We want to be our best. We want to do the things that we really enjoy doing. And sometimes life just gets in the way, which is why it is so important that you can have someone that you can talk with, you can speak with, who can help to, give verbiage, add words, to be able to explain, why you feel the way you do. And no matter what you're going through, therapy for me has been absolutely amazing, because whether it is insomnia, whether it's social issues, whether it's parenting issues. I mean, you guys have heard me talk about myself with my father. I mean, being able to speak with a therapist, a licensed therapist, has been so important to my growth and my overall emotional maturity. You want somebody to do that. And plus, you want to feel like yourself again. And there's so many people who don't feel like themselves, but you don't know what else to do. And I'm telling you, BetterHelp is the best option for you. So if you're thinking about giving therapy a try, BetterHelp is a great option. It's convenient, flexible, affordable, and entirely online. So you don't have to worry about going to sit down in some room and everybody's looking at you and you having to sign in and everybody's thinking like, what kind of problems this person got? It's all online. So you ain't got to worry about all of that. You just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. And here's the great thing. If the therapist you get matched with is not someone you like, you can switch at any time. And also, financial aid is available. So if you want to live a more empowered life, therapy can get you there. Visit BetterHelp.com/Lindsay's today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Lindsay's, LINDSEYS. Again, that is BetterHelp, HELP.com/Lindsay's, LINDSEYS. You're getting 10% off your first month. 10% off your first month. Take advantage of this offer. Do this for you because you deserve it. BetterHelp, HELP.com/Lindsay's, LINDSEYS. Okay, we're back. So now you're going into this story about your fatherhood, because about your father's story, and that was going to be the next thing I was going to ask you. So I'm so glad you already segue into it. So pick up right from where you left off, bro.
Yeah. So a lot of ways, man. Being a dad forced me to find answers to fatherhood questions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm finding, I have to define, first of all, what is a man? What is a good man? I want to be a good man. Then again, I want to raise a son that's not the problem child in class. So what do I need to give him? I didn't have the first clue, right? I just knew, look, get in college, play ball, get to the league, make some money, take care of mama. You know what I mean? Just the basic structural stuff, right? None of the meat, none of the nuances. And so it left me with a lot of questions that, I needed to find the answers to. I was blessed with one of the coaches at the time, really kind of mentored and discipled me, man, but helped me answer a lot of those questions. And so what it did was it kind of positioned me to figure out, okay, what is a man? What do real men do? What do good men do? And then that's what I want to raise my son to be. Right. And it also helped me because as a believer, as a Christian, man, I'm trying to figure out my relationship with God at that point. Right. And so I really understood it from a completely different perspective. God as a father by being a father.
Yeah.
How do you love? You know what I mean? How do you care for? How do you guide? And so by being able to see that from that perspective, and then really having kind of, growing up with my son, growing into it, it really helped me to understand that a lot of times, man, men are wounded. They're searching for an answer to a question. So I read this book. It was called Wild at Heart one time, and it had one major
John
question.
Elkridge.
Yeah, love that book, man. But that major question, do I have what it takes? Man, that thing permeates every area of your life. And so men are in a lot of ways trying to find an answer to this. And even as fathers, you look and say, man, did I give him what he needed? And then on the other side, it was my lack that fueled the father that I became. So my biological father wasn't very involved. Didn't really even know his side of the family. I have some memories, of him when I was young, that they separated. My parents divorced and separated. And so what I had to do, I figured out, I said, you know what? I got to forgive my dad. I'm carrying a burden. I began writing a book, man, called Boys Are Not Born Broken.
Mm.
I became an educator out of college, man, and really saw that the younger boys were really needing something. So I became, most of us wear multiple hats. So I was a coach, I was a teacher, and I noticed that my players or my students, they needed a father figure. They needed someone to invest in them from that perspective. They need a father's love because they didn't know what that looked like. And so I found myself with that hat on, loving them like a father would be, obviously, because I had a son at the time. And so I knew what they needed. And so what I found too was that as I'm writing this book, Boys Are Not Born Broken, some of it was derived from my experience as an educator, and like, you know what, these boys are being treated in a way that's different than how they learn. Um, but then I said, I've reached a point where I can't go no further without having a conversation with my dad. My dad was in Germany at the time. So went over and spent about 5 months in Germany. And with the express intent to tell my father to his face that I forgive him.
That's good.
One of the things I learned, again, because I was gathering these, what is a real man? What do real men do? A la carte from a lot of different guys that I kind of respected or admired. One of the things is when you're a man, you speak face to face. If you got something you need to say to someone, you say it to their face. You look them in the eye and you tell them, with respect. And so that's what I did. And I was able to tell my father to his face, hey man, listen, I forgive you. All the time we missed, let's just start fresh now. Now, again, what I didn't learn until really doing that, spending some time with him, getting to know him, is that he has trauma that he needs to heal from, right? And so I'm forgiving him so we can kind of maybe start to build a relationship, not knowing that he has to forgive himself for not being there, and whatever opportunities he had that he didn't take advantage of. There's some work that he has to do on his side. And so what I found myself being able to do, man, is my fatherhood story fueled my passion for helping men heal.
Yeah.
Right. There are some dads who are not able to engage on the level that they would love to engage with their children for, other reasons, all kinds of different things, the relationship with the mother, or, all kinds of different things. But not every scenario is a dad who does not want to engage. There are a number of folks that do. I have, a number of friends who are navigating that space. But what it did was it drove me to just better and understand on a deeper level that guys, there's some brokenness that we carry. There's some questions that we need answered. And so we experience trauma, man, that shake us to a core. Where's the safe space to kind of work through that? Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes somebody who understands, who's been there, who understands it from that perspective. So I kind of have a both and, you know what I mean? I noticed like to grow up with a man for about 30 years of my life who was present geographically and proximity wise, but was not present emotionally. There was no emotional, growth and guidance and, molding there. We rarely talked about feelings. I knew I had them, but I didn't know who to talk with them, to talk with about that. Right. You hear women, kind of giving some insight in terms of that, but who can speak to a man about how a man feels than a man. Right. And so a lot of, again, what I needed, I got it, I gleaned it, I kind of a la carte kind of put it all together. I was like, okay, so here's what this thing looks like. Now I got to find a way not only to give it to my sons to make sure they don't have the same deficits that I came to the game with, but then to try to provide that for other men as well.
Well, Mr. Davis, I think that's amazing. I really do, bro. I mean, everything that you just said is so on point. I applaud you. I know we need more laborers in the field who are really, interested in being able, to assist and to help men. It does something for me to even know that that's something that, you're doing right now with men, because I pastored for 10 years. I went through the depression, the suicidal thoughts, all those different things. And, now I'm kind of on the other side of it, looking to plant a church here in LA, but I'm going to do it a lot differently. But now I kind of coach, a lot of these other pastors and, professional athletes and all these other men who are so broken, as you mentioned. They are so broken. They weren't born that way, as you mentioned, but they are broken and they have these father issues. I remember sitting around a table. I host these retreats quarterly. And I remember sitting around at a table, one of the first retreats I went to in Montana. And, unfortunately, I was one of the only black guys, one of the only men of color that was sitting around the table. And I remember they were going around, and I remember they were, these guys, they were talking about how, you know, everything's going great in their life, you know, and a couple of them mentioned their father, like, yeah, you know, my father, I had a great conversation with him. I'm so glad I can go to my father and get wisdom. I'm so glad I can do this. And I remember sitting at that table with every man who was talking, as happy as I wanted to be for them, I was getting pissed off because I'm like, there's no way that you understand my issue. So then, you know, it came my turn, and, you know, this is an authentic place. I love the table I go to in Montana. But then when I got ready to share, I remember I shared something, and then, you know, it kind of just went around the table. And then a pastor came up to me afterwards, and he's like, you know, he's like, well, I don't understand it. You know, he said, you got to snap out of it. And, you know, you just got to keep moving. And here's the thing. I feel like my whole life was all about snapping out of it and just keep moving and don't worry about it and all this. But then I looked at this guy, and I'm looking at him, I'm thinking to myself, you don't have a clue what I'm talking about. Like, you don't have a clue when I talk about the brokenness, when I'm talking about, you know, my depression, which now, after meeting my dad, I question whether or not I was really depressed at that time or whether or not I was in deprivation, because I felt deprived. Yeah. I didn't have identity, bro. Like you mentioned, I didn't have identity. I didn't have affirmation. I didn't feel like I was accepted. I felt rejected. So everything that I did, every achievement that I had, self-publishing 12 books in 6 years. Everybody's like, well, why would you do that? Because when one of the books came out, I didn't even care about the book when it came out. I got books out there now. I don't do anything to them because it wasn't even about writing a freaking book. I didn't care if I made $1 off of the book. All I wanted was for my dad to look at me and say, boy, you did it again. Look at you, man. I'm so proud of you. You got it going. So I lived my life with all of these deficits. And I feel like there are so many men out there right now who are living their life. They're leading other people, pastoring other people, you know, I mean, they're influencers for other people. Think about, you know, the guys who you played sports with, the guys who play sports now. They're influencing other people, but they don't have a clue who they are. And that fatherlessness and the silence within the community, you know, specifically, I know for Black and brown men, is absolutely huge. And it's as if we're not doing anything about it. I reached out to a company, because like I said, I host these retreats, and I reached out for sponsorship. And I'm not going to mention the name of the company. I reached out to them and I said, hey, you know, this is what I'm doing. I sent them over my sponsorship packet. I said, hey, could you just sponsor some of these men? That's it. Here's the cost for them to attend, because a lot of these men don't have the funds to be able to eke out the money to be able to go on the retreat. Could you just sponsor them? And I got all the way to a third phone call with somebody else in the company. And this lady got on the phone and she said, hey, I'm just going to be honest with you. She said, this is not the year of the Black man. She said, I understand what you're trying to do for men. She's like, but this is not the year of the man. She was like, right now, money is being allocated for women. She was like, we're right now, we're trying to uplift Black women. She's like, listen, this is completely off the record. She was like, but I'm telling you, it's going to be extremely difficult for you to be able to find someone who's going to be willing to fund this. Because she said, you know, I feel like men have always had something. And I went back and I'm like, but what do we have? Every magazine that's on the shelves is talking about women. And then it's written about, you know, the woman finding a good man that's written by a woman or written by a man who ain't doing nothing but trying to appease women. Yeah. And I'm like, what spaces do we have? The military? So we can just go get drunk all day long? What spaces do we have? Professional sports, so that we can have our identity to be derived from our achievement and from our accolades. Like what do we have? The gym? So I can go and just participate in vanity? Like what space do I have? Women have retreats. They get the conferences. They got the little book clubs they go to. Man, what are we supposed to do? Go hunting? I don't want to go hunting. I don't go hunting. I had guys who are like, yeah, they just start a hunting retreat club. And I'm looking at myself like, I don't want to go out there hunting no bear with you. Plus, I don't trust you with a gun. I don't know you. I'm a Black man. I'm a Black man here with 4 white dudes. Now, I'm going to come up missing, and all of a sudden you going to say it's a problem. Yeah, I'm just like, I can be honest. Like, what spaces do we have? Yeah. So, bro, it's so dope that you're even in this space, you know, leading and providing this for men. I know something that Jay mentioned when he introduced us. he mentioned this, and I want you to expound on it. Before you expound on it, we're going to go to a break. But I want you to expound on the fact of you having this Abrahamic heart and the importance that is needed. Because, brother, let me tell you this. Even when now we got spiritual fathers, bro, who are 26. This is the tomfoolery that we got.
Yeah.
The spiritual fathers who are 26 years old. I mean, it's like, where's Big Papa?
Yeah.
Where is Papa? Where is Grandpa? They all died in silence. So now we got Big Mama, we got aunties, we got grandmama, and now they're still alive. They're still pouring out information. They're still giving out wisdom, and all the old men are just silent. You look at the older preachers nowadays. Yeah. What are they leaving behind? Yeah. They're not even trying to give up the pulpit.
Nope.
They're still trying to preach. They're still trying to be relevant. In their older years, they're not even trying to give wisdom or even stage or even resources for the younger guys. It's still about them. So we're gonna go to a quick break real quick. We're gonna come right back, and after we come back, I want you to go in on that having that Abrahamic heart. So let's take a quick commercial break real quick. Be right back. So everybody, as a parent, I have 3 kids, and it is so important that I take care of my kids because I don't know what's going to happen in the future. And I know we all try to predict the future and believe that everything's going to be okay. But in the back of my mind, as a father, as a parent, I want to make sure that I'm making sure I'm taking care of my kids. And I want to make sure that I take care of them and ensure their future with the proper life insurance. So if you need a New Year's resolution idea, here I got one for you. Make sure you and your family are insured and do it today. Fabric was designed by parents for parents to help you get a high quality, surprisingly affordable term life insurance policy in less than 10 minutes. You know how important life insurance is to me. I mean, it's so important. I went and got my own license. That's how important it is. Life insurance can have a bad rap for being complicated, but Fabric makes it easy to apply with a seamless digital experience. It's all online and on your time. If you need extra support, Fabric's team of licensed insurance agents can answer questions along the way. It takes less than 10 minutes to apply, see your quote, and then personalize your quote to fit your family's needs. You could be offered coverage instantly with no health exam required. Now, keyword there, could. So protect your family today with Fabric by Gerber Life. Apply today in just 10 minutes at meetfabric.com/thisislife. That's meetfabric.com/thisislife. MEET fabric.com/thisislife. Policies issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company. Not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions. Meetfabric.com/thisislife. So yeah, man, if you could expound upon the importance of that Abrahamic heart, how we need to have it, and then also include in that as well for the men who are listening to this, who are like, man, this is touching me because I feel like I'm lost. What are they supposed to do? And then if you could, for the women out there who are listening to this, who goes to bed every night with a man who doesn't know who he is.
Yeah.
Or she got 2 boys that she's trying to raise by herself. And she doesn't have that capacity to be able to tell them who they are, because in my house, my voice carries a lot more weight. Or I'll say this. It carries a different kind of weight than my wife's. My wife can say something, but when I say it, the whole house changes. Mm-hmm. So speak to those things, the Abrahamic heart, what can men do? And then also for the women who are listening, what are some of the things they can do? Take it away.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to circle back to something I was mentioning earlier. So I was an elementary school teacher, right? And I was coaching like high school ball, that kind of thing. And as I was saying, part of what I saw was the need, right? And it kind of grew from there in terms of, finding an answer and pouring into young men the answer to the question, do you have what it takes? You absolutely do. So that's number one.
I love that.
It's to pour in, you have what it takes. Somebody told me this a long time ago, that every person, but especially men, need three things, right? They need to hear three things. They need to hear, I love you, from someone who means it. Not with conditions. As Jay would say, not because of how you perform, because of what you can do for me, but just I love you because of who you are. First, from a human standpoint, you deserve it. You are deserving of love, right? Not no matter how you provide or protect or all that stuff that society or culture puts on you, identifies you as, right? Because you end up if you fall into this cultural kind of picture, this representative. The culture does not see you as a man, as a human, sees you as a performer, as a servant, right? You don't get to feel. You got to go to work and you got to provide for your family. You got to make sure they got a roof over their head. You got to make sure the car has gas in it. You got to make sure the tires got air in it. You got to make sure the oil is changed. You got to make sure we got food. You got to make sure the kids can go to school, right?
Right.
But what about burnout? Right? Hey, so here's the trick bag. You're doing all this, to provide for everybody, make sure everybody's good. Well, what if you wake up and you're not okay? Who do you talk to about that, right? Or hey, you're gone all the time. You're not even here to help. But okay, I can't do both. I think TD Jakes said so. He had a sermon that he preached a while back that he was talking about. Hey, man, listen, if he's a hard worker, he ain't gonna be at home. If he's at home all the time, he ain't gonna be able to get the benefit of the hard work, right? And so, you have this trick bag of I can't, I'm vacillating between the two, wearing myself out, and you wonder why people reach this breaking point where they're like, I just can't do it. I need to check out of the rat race. I'm done. I can't do it anymore, right? Now the challenge is that you're sustaining all while you're trying to do this. You're sustaining wounds. You're sustaining blows, right? One of the things that we know from a biblical standpoint, like when you have armor, right? In those times, man, the armor was tied in the back, right? So you had to have somebody that you trusted, right, to be able to help you put your armor on and help you take your armor off. What men need most is a safe space to take your armor off with some people you can trust behind your back.
Behind your back. That right there is important. Go ahead.
Right? That you're not going to stick a knife in my most vulnerable, place, right? Because I can't protect myself back. I can't see. You see what I'm saying? So you need a Jonathan type of individual that loves you enough, loves you, like not your persona, but you as a person, you as a brother say, hey man, listen, I don't care. Listen, if you mess up, okay, we're going to walk through that. I'm not going to let you, let's walk through that. I'm not going to throw you away, because what happens in society is that men get thrown away. It's like, hey, I will get another one. So there's a value conversation that we got to have, right? So as I was saying, as I was tracing it all the way back in terms of the elementary school space, I learned an interesting lesson. I was surrounded by female teachers, and the young men in my class, they were always great. They were like, I don't know how do you get those boys to behave? Okay,
Here we
how you
go.
get them to behave? I said, listen, I mean, when I talk to these young boys, I talk to them like I wanted somebody to talk to me when I was a little boy. I don't want to be I don't want to be talked at. I want to be talked with. So I talk with them like, hey, whatever comes out of your mouth has value. Your perspective, your thought, your idea, your philosophy, it has value. And now, it may need some guiding, it may need some nurturing, may need some massaging or some molding, but it still has value. And so when I would talk with them, I would talk with them. And oftentimes I would get on a knee. I'm 6'3.5". I had to get on the knee. I was a big guy. Get on the knee and talk with them on their level. And it did something when they felt like, wow, okay, this conversation, I have value in this conversation. There was a study, man, that basically said that from an educational standpoint, the way the system is set up, it treats boys like defective girls. And I was like, whoa, wait a minute.
Hold up. Say it again.
So the system is set up because of the way that boys are wired. In the educational system, boys are treated like defective girls, and I'll explain. So basically, boys are by and large kinesthetic learners. Let me put my hands on that thing a lot of times, right? Okay, so you're teaching me this thing, and so I can't go. I need to move around, Boys are generally balls of energy, right? You got to
Right.
think about testosterone. You got all that stuff pumping in your system. As you get older, you have more and more and more of this testosterone pumping in your system. You're about to explode. You need to do something. Let me move around a little bit, right? Now girls are, by and large, able to kind of sit quietly, read a book, gather together, engage each other in a certain way. They're more talkative, right? Boys, we need to move around. We need to be like chopping some wood, throwing a ball. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Something. You know what I mean? Even
Yeah.
listen, even because I was a former programmer, man. You know what I mean? An IT guy. Even the IT guys need to, you know what I mean? It's got to
Yeah.
be some jostling around. It's a thing that we got to do. But I think the misconception is that boys or men, for that matter, don't have anything to say, and they do. They think they have a lot of thoughts about a lot of things. But in that space, and so we're growing up in a place for first grade to 12th grade that in a lot of ways tells me that who I am, my natural tendencies is wrong,
Oh my God.
right? And so how do I recalibrate when you keep telling me that how I feel is wrong?
ADD.
Again, I'm yeah. Oh, you ADD. Yeah, you need to sit down. He's all over the place. Well, guess what? A lot of how I'm wired is to this is what I do. So here's the thing. So you tell me for 12 years, and then in school and home, quiet all that down and move and be quiet and go. And then what happens is, then later on, you need to
Uh-oh.
pick it back up and start. Or you tell me I'm a former football player. Hey man, suck it up and walk it off, man. Don't feel. You teach
Mhm.
me not to feel.
Mhm.
And then when I get into the real world and start to look at relationships, then you tell me all of a sudden now I got to feel now. But here's the thing: not only do
Good.
I feel, but I got to be proficient at it. I have to have some polish. But I stopped growing at 4.
Oh, I'm
You
gonna throw
know,
this microphone at you.
you know what
God,
I'm saying?
please.
And so what I would say is that we need understanding,
Mm.
right? Understand the kind of environment that told me I was bad, right? Again, listen, I was a single father. My son was at college with me, bro. Like I had him the whole time. I had sole custody. But every Father's Day message was everybody's that's not doing what they need to do. I'm like, wait a minute, but I am. I know a lot of guys who love, here's the thing. I mean, again, this is another tangent. I'm just dropping in for free. There are a lot of guys, as I was saying earlier, who want their kids more, but the child's mother is still trying to hurt him for whatever happened in their relationship. The relationship may have only lasted a couple of years, but you got to pay for 18 for 2 years worth of, you know what I mean? Let the punishment fit the crime. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm gonna leave that alone.
And then
Um,
when he gets older, and then he has anger issues, and he
yes,
starts punching holes in the wall and knocking the door off the hook, and then all
yes,
of a sudden you need to come get your son.
yes,
You need to come get him. I can't
yes.
control him anymore. Yeah, but you
Come on.
kept me from him from the time that he was 5 to the time that he was 16. So now he's interested in gangs and drugs and sex and everything else because he has no. Oh, bro, you.
Come on. 'Cause, listen, we all need community, right? So I learned, I'm playing ball, I'm playing football, I'm beating myself up, you know what I mean? Because what? Man, when I get with my guys, they love me for me. You know what I mean? We stick together, we take up for each other, we move as a pack. It's community. We all need community, right? But if you keep feeding me this toxicity of I'm bad, I'm bad, I'm bad. Me, the things that that have a natural tendency because you don't understand what it's like to have the kind of testosterone pumping through your veins like I do, like men do. We have a tendency, right? There's a thing, there's something that happens for us. We see the world from a different vantage point, right? And so, yeah, I have feelings. Here's something else. I'm gonna throw this in too, man. Read a book by I think it's Michael Gurian. It's called "What Is He Thinking?" or "What Could He Be Thinking?" I think something like that. Here's what he said. He basically alluded to the fact that our brains are wired differently, right?
Right.
He said that in your brain, the neuroscience, when a man is emotionally charged, then that the blood flows to the part of his brain that is responsible for motor function, movement, right? So when he's angry, the blood flows to movement. For women, it flows the opposite direction. it flows to the area of the brain that is responsible for communication.
Ooh.
Okay? So what are we learning here? So when I'm angry, I'm gonna talk less and be more physical. When she's angry, she's gonna talk more, right? So what she's wanting, when she's emotionally charged, she's gonna want you to talk more, but just the way your brain works. I'm quiet. I'm off to the. You see what I'm saying? Why am I punching a hole in the wall? You see what I'm saying? Like, why is that? And so what happens is she goes and finds her girlfriends and does what? Does a whole bunch of talking. Right? And what do we want to do? I want to go to the gym. I want to punch a hole. I want to, you know what I mean? Or
swing an axe.
listen,
Yep. You're right.
you know, or
Yep.
for some guys, you know, maybe they want to be physically intimate to get out. You see what I'm saying? I don't want to talk. I just want to do.
Yeah.
Okay. Because of how the you know, just how the neurology, man. You see what I'm saying? And so just to understand that I'm different and I'm not bad because I'm different.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so my brain works differently. So, hey, sister, if he's angry, create a space for him to do something physically. Take a walk, go run, whatever the case may be. So a mom of a younger boy, here's another thing. Men are wired for praise. Why do you think athletes play better at home? Because everybody's cheering. Hey, man, listen. You're in as a basketball player, they cheer when you miss a free throw. Hey, you know, do better next time. Hey, no problem. Don't worry about it. You got this, right? Even if you fail, your failure is not final when you're at home. Ooh-wee. Don't miss that. When you're at home, your failure is not final. Even if you miss the shot, I don't believe that you'll miss every shot. Shoot again. Keep trying. You can do it. That's what you get at home. Now, when you're away from home, they boo, they heckle, they try to, you know, demean you so that you'll stop doing what you have the potential, the power, and the talent to do. Because they don't want you to perform to, you know what I mean? And so what happens is that when boys are younger, unbeknownst to their mothers, they get cheered when they're little boys and they begin to walk. Look at little Johnny, mommy's little man, right? Oh, he took out the trash all by himself. Applause, applause, applause. Mommy's little man, look, hey, y'all, look at little Johnny. Watch him do this, such and such and such. Look at what he created. Look at what he did. Oh, he helped mommy with the groceries. Look, he's got 2 bags in his hand, right? Cheer, 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 cheer. Then it shifts from applause to expectation and obligation. But he doesn't understand, why are you no longer affirming me for what I'm doing? Why are you no longer applauding? I don't understand. And so then he's yearning. So then what happens is he becomes performance-based. I want to do more because I need the affirmation. He doesn't know what it is. He doesn't understand. Right? And so then you grow up into a man and you're trying to be CEO when maybe you need to start, you know what I mean? You're trying to chase after something so that, like you and I, we're trying to get the affirmation. Hey, if I go to college, if I get a scholarship, if I'm on the TV, if I'm in the newspaper, maybe dad will say, I'm proud of you. Maybe dad, you know, maybe he'll affirm me. And I was going to say this earlier. There are 3 things you need. You need an I love you from somebody who means it. You need an I'm proud of you. And you need somebody to recognize what you're good at, right? So I love you. I'm proud of you, right? And then I see you are good at XYZ. What does that last statement mean? That means I'm paying enough attention to you to see where your gifts and your talents and your skills are at. Let me pour into that. Because if that's how you're wired, then that's what your contribution to the world is. Now, if you are everything you are meant to be, we're all better. So the reason why I would speak to my boys and use those terms and those names when I would talk to them is because if they are everything they are gifted and talented to become, then we're all better. You know what I mean? We're better.
Man, that is so good. Even the 3 things that you mentioned that a boy needs, you know, I think about the 10 emotional childhood needs, especially for the boy. He needs acceptance, he needs approval, and he needs acknowledgement. I love you. And I mean, it's like going through those three things. They're so important, brother. I wanted to, I mean, literally from the bottom of my heart, I wanted to thank you for coming on and talking to me and talking to the people as well. I want to appreciate the work that you are doing for men. I want to appreciate the space that you are creating for men. And I want to appreciate the sacrifice that you are making so that men can be better, because we need it. But lastly, I want, if you could provide for the people how they could get in contact with you, what's your business contact, all that kind of stuff, so we can make sure that everybody who's listening here can get connected to you. How can they do that?
Okay. First of all, hey, thank you so much for the opportunity to be on this show, man. I think you creating a space for people to be nourished is beyond any level of importance that I can put into words. It's critical. It's paramount. And so I just applaud you for doing this, man, and giving the opportunity to encourage and to affirm some folks. So how they can get in contact with me. So my name is Chris Davis, so you can find me on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, _ the Lionheart, the number 1 _. Listen, if you need to email me because something you've heard, you want me to dig a little deeper with you, I'm willing to do that. I'm a life coach. You can email me at Chris, CHRIS, at thelionheart.us, all one word, THELIONHEART.us. So those are the ways they can catch up with me, man. There's some other things that my beautiful bride, that we're going to be doing in terms of coaching, like couples and that kind of thing, because I really want to pour into couples and, like you said, help wives understand the heart of their husbands and how their hearts beat, to provide some health in relationships. So those are ways they can catch me.
I hope, and I just want to throw this out there, I hope that you and your wife consider hosting marriage retreats. There's just not enough of them out there. You know, my wife and I, we've been hosting marriage retreats for over a decade now. And the sad part is that there's just not enough of them out there for people. Wow. And I mean, it's cool to be able to have a conference or have a convention. We've done the marriage conferences and stuff, but it's something about going to a resort that is secluded away from their normal life, and then being able to have the husband and wife to sit down together to both learn, but then to be able to go off and be able to have some sort of vacation is so needed. So I hope you and your wife, you guys consider doing that in the future. It's just, it's so needed. We need more spaces out there. But Mr. Davis, as you will call your sons, I want to make sure I give you that same respect. Again, I appreciate you being here with us. To everybody who's out there, who's watching, who's paying attention, make sure that you get in contact with him. Again, his email address is Chris, CHRIS, at thelionheart.us. Make sure you contact him. If he's on Facebook, all that stuff, make sure you contact him, and make sure that you stay locked in. Make sure you subscribe. Share this with your family, your friends. Share it with that single mom that you know who's been complaining about her boys. Share it with the wife that you know that's been complaining about her husband. Share it with the brothers that you know who may want to listen to this in silence and not tell you that they actually listen to it, because I know sometimes our pride as men can get in the way. God bless y'all. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Remember, we drop an episode every Friday. So keep kicking it with us. Introduces, we out. Appreciate y'all. Bye.